Good afternoon and welcome to all of our viewers joining us live on SuperSport Blitz. Just moments ago, we finally heard confirmation of what is arguably the worst-kept secret in South African rugby, the appointment of Rassie Erasmus as the Springbok coach. We've got him in studio, as do we also have members of the media who join us here today for this live press conference. As I said, the announcement has been made, and now is the first look at the new Springbok coach and a couple of questions to follow for members of the media. Rassie, firstly, congratulations. Yes, you've been with SA Rugby for some time. Yes, you do carry, I suppose, or wear more than one hat. But insofar as your tenure goes as Springbok coach, I think congratulations, and it's going to be a long, tough slog ahead.
Yes, X, thanks for that. Obviously, it's a big challenge. Obviously, a massive pride thing. I'm really proud to have this job. And now the responsibility, I know what we're in for this specific year, for the World Cup next year and for the next 4 or 5 years. So massive challenge, but tremendously proud.
Let's start with a little bit of clarification. We know that your appointment initially was that of Director of Rugby at SA Rugby. Now, as coach, are you going to relinquish that role after the World Cup? Do you stay on until beyond that?
Yes, no, I stay on until 2023. I'm going to do both roles there. In my previous job when I was at SA Rugby, I was basically Director of Rugby from the sevens down with the SA schools, the SA A team and the junior Springboks. So now actually just the Springbok team gets added to that. So it's definitely a lot of responsibility, but one I think I really can do.
You and your Mobi unit also have worked together and have been trying to spread the rugby gospel and have some standards spread across the different unions and franchises in South Africa. I assume that a lot of those names that we know are also going to be joining you in your endeavour, but as assistant coaches to the Springboks. Could you confirm who's joining you?
Yes, the Mobi unit doesn't exist anymore. When I left in a year, 2 years ago, to go to Ireland, that actually dismantled, to call it that way, but we got them back into the mix. So Peter de Villiers will be one of the assistant coaches with Jacques Ninaber and Zondile Stick. They've been going around to the franchises anyway, with most of the players from the big 4 franchises, Bulls, Sharks, Lions and Stormers. We've been coaching with them. Peter de Villiers is on tour with the Stormers currently. Jacques will probably go with the Sharks. Myself is travelling around. So we're trying to keep that going, but not in a Mobi unit capacity as Springbok assistant coaches.
Are you guys going to swap which teams that you spend time with and travel with?
Yes, we swap around. I spend 1 week there, then Jacques would go there, then all 3 of us will go there. So we try to spread it evenly, and it's working out nicely.
You mentioned Jacques, you mentioned Peter and Zondile, who was previously an assistant coach in the Springboks setup, and we know that, his tenure didn't go particularly well. In fact, he was fairly heavily criticised. But I think most people were in agreement that there is something there, there's a future there, and perhaps not a man to just be lightly discarded. Perhaps a bit of an error. Glad to see you've got him back. What are your plans?
On sticks. Yeah, and Zondile, I know really well. I think my idea was always a few years ago when he got into the Springbok setup, or 2 years ago. He's got a specific skill. He was the sevens captain. He was the player of the sevens player of the year as the captain. He coached the under-90s at EP. He coached the Voda Cup. He was assistant coach at Super Rugby. He was now assistant coach at Springboks and at junior Springboks. He brings a specific skill set, which is not a backline coach or attack coach. I'm going to definitely utilise him in something specific, which was the intention 2 years ago. More the sevens, off the ball work rate, getting players into position early, something that he's really familiar with, and I think he's going to bring massive value.
I'm going to open up the floor, but before I do, there is the added match with the Springboks set to play Wales in Washington, and that's just before that 3-test series against England. What's going to happen there? Because you've only got a week before you play England in the first of the 3 tests. Yeah. Do you have to split the team? Do you have to have a South Africa A team? Yeah. What's the plan? Yeah,
look, firstly, I know it looks a little bit like suicide from the outside, but having an extra test match before we play 18 test matches, otherwise only 17 before the World Cup. So we see it as an extra match where we can prepare for the World Cup. Obviously, we have to win that match, but we'll have to juggle a bit and be creative. Of course, in 7 days' time, you play England at altitude at Ellis Park, so we'll have to be creative then. But our plans are in place.
Does it mean you can come and does it mean we can expect you to pick 1 or 2 players that we know aren't available now that might be available at the World Cup? Because we know that 30-test rule falls away over
Look, the 30-test rule is there to prevent players from playing abroad, and not to prevent players from playing for South Africa. So I think that's working on the one side, but on the other side, we'll have to make sure, is it fulfilling the goal it was set out to do? And then, we have to test some players which we might use next year. We have to test them somewhere. So I guess those 2 test matches will be one of those windows. I have to go through leadership and make sure, we get past all the necessary protocol, but that would be one of the requests to see where we can test some players maybe in those matches.
Are you going to mention 1 or 2 names?
I'll first have to chat to the players, but it will come around.
It was worth a try, but in effect, does that mean we can expect you to split the resources, I suppose?
Yeah, we'll definitely have to. You can't go, that won't be the total plan. That will be part of the plan that, listen, we're going to play in the States, arrive there on a Tuesday, play a match, arrive back the next Tuesday and play at altitude. So you'll be foolish to think you'll have one squad of 23 or 26 go and play there, come back and be competitive against England, who's second in the world. So it might be a bit of a combination. It might be 2 squads. It might be some of the bench guys playing in both games, something like that.
And we know how tenuous the last coach's time in office was, and there was a lot of talk about what it is that is expected from a Springbok coach. Have you had those conversations in terms of your success and how it will be measured and what it means for you in your future capacity?
Yes, definitely. I think the bottom line is we all know, the KPIs is there and it's winning. If you win, you will stay in the job. If you don't win, you will quickly move out of the job. It's always been like that and it will always stay like that.
A couple of gentlemen and ladies on the floor. I'm going to open up now for any questions. We have a roving mic as well in our Studio 1 in Randburg. So I'll ask for just a show of hands if there are any questions to be added to the conversation. And while we look for names, do we have one yet? Not yet? Questions? Well, we'll keep going until the questions are forthcoming. But we know that England is your first major hurdle. Yes, we spoke about the fact that there's that match against the Welsh. We saw Eddie Jones. We've been watching with great interest what's happened in the Six Nations, and a seminal moment with the English losing to Scotland last weekend. Your take on England and what would constitute a successful Test series? Whitewash, 3 out of 3, 2 out of 3?
Yeah, well, just a series win, I think, would be sufficient at this stage. They're definitely beatable. They're a formidable outfit, and Eddie's really having them playing really well. But I know Scotland showed us. I coached again that Scotland team for Munster with about 17, 18 Glasgow players in there. They're a really good outfit, and they've got continuity with Gregor Townsend, so I think that helps a bit. But no, I think we're in with a big shot in June.
Certainly a wonderful blueprint for the Boks to pick up on. And I think... Percy Young, I think you've got the first question from the floor.
Thank you so much, X. Rassie, congratulations. Firstly, you're making a bit of history here, or rather you can correct me now, being appointed for at least 6 years, 2 World Cups. Can you just briefly, you partially answer the question to X now, what is the mandate for you over the next 6 years? And obviously you've got a dual role at the moment now. Do you think with this big task that you've got with the Springboks, it's a very hard seat. Do you think you're still able to do that big task of being the director of rugby and dealing with all the other codes as well still, sir, over the next 6 years?
Yes, Percy, thanks for congratulating me. The first thing is, and as I said to Ax, up until I left for Munster, I was actually the director of rugby of all the teams except the Springbok team, the Sevens, the SAA, the Junior Springboks, Neil Pell, Renfred, all of those, we worked together and we actually planned strategically Commonwealth, Olympic, all of those things we planned to get together and did together. So those things will stay the same. We play 14 matches a year. We will spend 70% of our time with the Springboks and on the Springboks planning. I think what will help in this role is that you actually now have a role to play managing seventh player and their pathway and junior Springboks and their pathway and thinking more strategic with the Springboks as the end goal in mind. So on the one hand, yes, it's a massive job. On the other hand, I think for the continuity and player pathway and coach's pathway, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to align everybody with the Springbok cause.
Next question from Simigiwe Klabanisa. Sim?
Rassie, congratulations again. Just quickly, was there ever a situation where, it might have been somebody else because you'd come in, the head coach might have been somebody else after Alistair left because you came in as director of rugby?
Yes, obviously when I came here, I was coming in as director of rugby. I definitely didn't make the decision to appoint myself as the head coach there. You know, I was planning to work with the Springbok head coach the same as I work with the SA team head coach or the junior Springbok head coach or Neil Pell or Renfred or Paul Delport now in that case. So my planning was to do the same, and then they decided obviously on me getting the position.
Do we have another question from the floor, Johanna?
Oh, Jacques. Congratulations. Just have you considered any, captaincy candidates at this stage and the makeup of your team? Do you have any indication already what a team might look like at this stage?
Look, we've only played, as you know, 2 Super Rugby rounds. I think being in Europe and seeing and playing, coaching against those English clubs and coaching against those European teams, I've got definitely a different outlook on our players. I think we undervalue the players we have here. I think we sometimes see all the problems. I think we've got wonderful players, and I think sometimes we take too long before we select certain players. And listen, the normal names will pop up, the Eben and the Sias and Warren Whiteley. Warren has currently just come back from an injury, only played 2 games. Eben is long-term injury. So I think it's really early days, but there's a lot of good leaders. And as the Super Rugby goes on, I think it's not clear in my mind at this point.
Right, do we have any more questions? We'll start at the back with you, and we'll come back to the front.
Hi, Rassie. Just continuing on the subject of Super Rugby, can you just clarify what exact role the Springbok management team is playing with Super Rugby franchises? How much say do you have over what positions players are playing in and the overall tactics from the teams themselves?
Yes, yeah. Obviously, we've got no say in telling a player or a coach where he can play a player. I think what we're trying to do is trying to open a channel where we actually are part of their management team as much as they want to allow us and almost allow us. So if a coach wanted to sit in the coach's box sharing ideas, or currently at some teams we sit in the team meetings, in the technical sessions, we're at the matches involved, some teams we're touring with. So it depends if Robert or Mitch or Flecky or Swayze or those guys, how much they want us involved. At this stage, it's an open door policy. They've been great. We've never said, listen, this guy must play here or there. It's always been a two-way street. We obviously give ideas and say, listen, we think there's a spot open there for this guy if he's really keen to play for the Springboks, but it's always up to him. So it's fully in their control, and we're trying to access as much as we can.
Mr. Erasmus, just a follow-up question again, or maybe 2 questions, very easy questions I would want to think. Rassie, and I asked you in my initial question, it's a very tough job you currently have. Can I ask you, as director of rugby though, what is your thinking of women's rugby, and how serious do you treat women's rugby going forward as the director of rugby? I spoke to the president and they said women's rugby is quite an important part for them going forward. My second question is, very easy question, are you going to win the 2019 World Cup, sir?
The second one, the easy one. Okay, now, Percy, the first one on women's rugby, you must remember where we come from with women's rugby. We got them onto the circuit for one series. We got the sevens team now professionally, almost simulating what the men's are doing at SAS. Look, it's baby steps compared to the other countries, what they put into Olympic programs. We're obviously a bit off the pace there, but we're certainly catching up quickly. And the women's 15s we actually took out of international rugby now and we opened up a lot of youth training centres where we can introduce the game to the girls, get some expert coaches to them to build the base of women's rugby into their IPL. So I think it will be a long-term project, but certainly up there on the radar, because World Rugby also wants us to do that. Then on the Springbok, Percy, obviously now, I think we've got the players and the IP to win the World Cup. It's how quickly can we align the players, talent, coaches, IP, working together in South Africa. If we can do that quickly, I think we're in with a big chance.
Next question.
Rassie, a lot's been made the last season or two, the Springboks losing their aura in World Rugby. What is your assessment? What's your view on the state of Springbok rugby?
Look, our ranking tells the story. I think, what are we, 6th? I'm not 6th or 7th, 5th. So it's in our hands. If we are just going to say, oh, we're going to roll over, nobody's going to do that. South Africans never do that. And I can tell you that although people are saying that all over in the media, I know the players on the ground believe that we can be quickly back to 1 and 2 in the world. And again, I think we've got the personnel and the players. It's just aligning everybody. So world ranking at this stage say what it is, and it is what it is. And we can only change that by actions and getting results on the park.
Just going to take the opportunity to break away from our live broadcast on SuperSport Blitz, and a ton of journalists in here, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of reading material and things to listen to on podcasts and to watch on television over the next couple of days. But thank you very much. We'll also be chatting to Rassie Erasmus on First 15. That'll be later on tonight. So thank you for joining us, and goodbye to our viewers.